Hi and welcome to a new season of Becoming a Bookworm. I'm Øystein and I'll be your host. And I hope we get to experience a lot of fun together this year. I know that some of you are eagerly awaiting my video about which reads I enjoyed the most in 2022, but you'll have to wait a moment. Just because I felt it was right to wrap up December before I wrapped up the year. So let's start talking about the books I read in December, and if you have questions, just leave them in the comments. And my first read was this one. The Days in the History of Silence by Merete Lindstrøm, and this was chosen because it won the Nordic Council Literature Prize in 2012. Also, it's short, so it helped me reach my reading goals last year. It's about this older couple that has been through a lot, but they've sort of decided not to talk about it. The author gives us access to their past through the eyes of the woman in the relationship, and she tries to explain what they mean to each other, I guess. From the beginning of this novel, I was really engaged. It starts out with the scene where something significant happens where you sort of feel like the family is threatened, and I felt kind of a claustrophobia that really engaged me. But then the story sort of collapsed, or it took a turn for the boring. And the reason is that she goes through their story, and as you might guess, their story is also a lot of everyday stuff. Except they have a maid. And the maid is one of those important people in this novel, without me ever understanding why. I thought time and time again that we'll soon find out why this maid is so significant, but I never felt that we got to know. Maybe that was part of the fun. Beats me. I felt like I didn't get it, but at the same time the language was quite easily read. Those two often go together because if I don't understand language, of course I won't be understanding the novel either. But this time I just found this very, very boring and easily forgettable. Now it's about 1 month since I finished reading it, and I struggle to remember anything specific from the novel. But in my notes there are a lot of specific things, but they're all just questions of why people in the story has done things. As you might have guessed, this didn't end up getting a good score, but it started out so well. Now over to the next disappointment, and that is Karl Ove Knausgård and My Struggle, book number 6. So this is the one I really wanted to get to because I heard that in book number 6 he's going to explain a lot of things. Of course I enjoyed some of the books in the series as I discussed in my previous video, but on this journey I was all the time thinking that at some point I'm going to understand a whole lot more. But spoiler, I didn't. I'm pretty sure that some people feel like this book explains it all, but when you have written about 400 pages just about Hitler and Hitler's upbringing and his friends, I started to get a bit impatient. I felt like, why are you doing this to us? Is this your way of having fun? That might be the case. In the My Struggle series, I always felt like he had a good balance. He didn't write too much, but sometimes he was really, really close. Well, this time he wrote too much, because this is one big book. It's over 1,000 pages, and it's filled with a lot of weird stuff. So occasionally he talks about his family again in Sweden, and the circumstances around the publishing of the first novels. I did enjoy aspects of it, but I felt like this book could have been half of the size. Just removing the parts about Hitler would have made this significantly smaller. The whole My Struggle series is thought-provoking, but I felt like this was a bit different. It was more about other things than himself, and that was kind of annoying because this one I really wanted to be about him. I'm sure that this whole book is also thought to be about Knausgård himself, but I just couldn't see how. One example is that he writes, Hitler was charismatic, so was my father. And then he just writes about his everyday life. I really didn't get it. Am I happy that I read it? Yes. Because I'm a completist now. Will I continue to read more Knausgård books? Yes, probably. That was the last one in that series. Knausgård has been a significant part of the last quarter of 2022, and probably will be the year of Knausgård in some way for my bookish life. I have to mention one good thing that came out of this Knausgård mania, and that is that he has recommended a whole lot of books, and when Knausgård recommends books in his own right, it's easy for me to know which books I'm going to like or not. So I've gotten a lot of tips for books I want to read. So, and now over to something completely different, and it's Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I guess that if you've been on the internet lately, or for the last couple of years, you've probably seen these covers around, because they're just hugely popular. And this is book 1 and 2. I needed to get some shorter reads into the last month of last year, so I reached my reading goals, and these were perfect, because it really doesn't take that much time reading these ones. So this series consists of 4 books, and it's about 2 boys in high school, I think, that become friends, but then they wonder if they should be more than friends. I guess that sums it up. The one is gay, and the other one is sort of not sure. And I'll start off by saying that it sort of felt like reading a novel that the school system had produced as a mandatory read for every student to read, just in the way that it picks up all the talking points for every debate about being gay you've ever watched. It sort of took a bit of joy away from me, because I felt like it was more about showing us how it is being gay in high school, rather than telling a cool story. I guess that a lot of things can happen in the last 2 books, and this is sugar sweet, but I felt like it was lacking a whole lot of resistance. It's kind of difficult to explain, because there was drama in these books, but no real tension, I would say, or it didn't feel like it, at least. Maybe it's in the way it's written, maybe it's because I felt like I was spending more time page turning than actually reading. So these were my first graphic novel reads, and I don't know, it didn't feel great. It felt like reading a comic book, and comic books can be fun, but I wasn't gripped by this story. It's just too sugary sweet, and I understand why people like it, because sweet stories are sweet, words are words. I do not have the best words. Will I read book number 3 and 4? That might happen, but they're very expensive, so I guess I'll wait to see if I can find them at the thrift store, or just borrow a copy from someone, but I'm not there yet. Still happy I get to participate in the hype and see what it's all about. And as the theme of this video suggests, the next novel was the shortest book I had in my shelves, and it's Neil Gaiman's How the Marquis Got His Coat Back. So Marquis is one of the characters from Neil Gaiman's novel Neverwhere, and he loses his coat. Obviously this is how he got it back. The Marquis is one of my favorite characters from Neverwhere, and I guess many people felt that way. I actually felt like this was both too short and too long, because 50 small pages about him trying to find his coat is just a bit much. But I think I would enjoyed having a novel written about him as the main character, so why couldn't he just have done that? The language, as always, is poppy and happy and cool. That's how I describe language. I love Neil Gaiman's writing, and the language is fun. That's why I keep on reading him. And of course, the stories are also usually good. But not this one. My next read is actually one that you guys have suggested me reading several times, but I've sort of been thinking that that wouldn't have been something I could enjoy. But I did. And that is none other than William Shakespeare's Hamlet. So all of you might know what this story is about, and I'm ashamed to say that I sort of felt like I did, but I really didn't. And that has sort of been on purpose, because if there's one thing I don't like, it's spoilers. So Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. He comes back to Denmark to find his uncle at the throne. His uncle, of course, has killed his father, the king. And from there on out, Hamlet is trying to take revenge. This is the first time I'm reading a play, and I have to say that I'm falling a bit in love. It's just so easy. You get told who's coming into the room, you get told who's leaving the room. It's also concise and emphasized. Hamlet opens door. Hamlet comes into the room. I just love it. For people that don't like dense language, this is quite the opposite. And it's just plot, plot, plot. Also character development, but the storyline's just rushing through. a very, very nice surprise. The only thing that confuses me a bit is Hamlet himself, because he's a bit of a chaotic person, and being chaotic, I found him funny, which also surprised me, so I actually laughed quite a bit during this read. I could have never foreseen that happening. If you now have suggestions for which other Shakespeare plays I need to read, please comment below, because I really do want to. After reading a whole lot of shorter books, I felt kinda bad, and I picked up one of my safe bets. And that is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Fredrik Backman has become one of those authors that I really, really love. And if you're really interested in this book or more of my thoughts, you can check out my separate review that I made of this novel. This is a part of a trilogy where the last book came out last year. It's about this small place in Sweden called Beartown, where everything revolves around the hockey team, and especially the junior team. But the story isn't really about hockey, it's about growing up in a small place, it's about what a small community can do to you, and what it is like having your dreams crushed or people ganging up on you. There's so many themes, but hockey is sort of just the thing they all have in common, even those that don't like it. As with every other novel from Fredrik Backman, this is sugary sweet at times, but also very dramatic. You might say it's a bit much. And it is, but I loved it. One of Backman's strengths is how he makes you feel about the people in his novel. If someone is suffering, you're suffering too. And if someone's happy, you're happy for them. I just had so much invested in all of the kids in this novel. And there are a lot of them. It's a whole hockey team with feelings and emotions. I'm not going to talk that much about it. I gave this 5 out of 5. This is one of those books I instantly felt like was one of the best books I've ever read. And as I said, if you want more information about this book, you can check out my separate review. Fredrik Backman is one of those names that really stand out from 2022, and maybe this year this one will be the same. Ben Arnwich and Moon Over Soho. This is the second novel in the series Rivers of London. In this series we follow a police officer in London, his name is Peter Grant, and he chases ghosts, because in the first novel he discovered that he had the ability, and also that the London Police Department had a separate department with one guy that did the same, and now he's under training to become a better police officer hunting for ghosts. He's sort of the grown-up Harry Potter at this point, because he's still trying to learn to do magic. As with other crime novels, a murder has happened, or several murders, and in the middle of all of this is jazz music, because the buddies plays this sound of a very specific jazz tune. And being the son of a legendary jazz musician, he has a lot going for him in this crime-solving business. So these are just happy, fun and entertaining novels. And it's one of those kinds of books that I don't have enough of in my life. All books I read have some mission, but these ones are just entertaining. And again, if you have entertaining book suggestions, leave them below. I find this topic a bit difficult to talk about, but when reading him, there are so many words that I've either forgotten or I didn't know about. So it's a really colorful language. And that part is not something I think about when I've read other English novels. So he really has a colorful language that I enjoy. He also still makes me feel like I'm a part of a guided tour around London. When I found these novels, I was looking for urban fantasy and something that was just lightly read and entertaining, and I really found that. And as I said, he's still being educated, so it's not by far the best in his field, which is more fun reading about than people being the best of the best. So I do really recommend this series if you want to check out more urban fantasy. It's fun. But I also do enjoy reading about people that are the best. And the best of the best is probably this guy. Not that guy, but the guy that hunts that guy. And that's Jonna Linna. So this is the fourth novel in the series about that detective. And this one is called The Sandman, written by Lars Kepler. When reading this one, I didn't write any notes at all. So either I despised it or I loved it. And it's the latter one. Because when I don't write anything, it's just me being intensely into this novel. Actually, one of my complaints about book number 3 in this series was that it spent so much time talking about what is to come in book number 4. And it didn't make any sense. I felt like all of the things that stood in book number 3 was just being repeated in this one. So, why? It starts out with one of the victims of an earlier serial killer suddenly appearing. This serial killer has also threatened Jonna Linne's family, and there's a lot of things going on in that department. But Jonna Linne gets involved to find out if there are several victims and how all these things are linked together. Being a crime fiction novel, I'm not going to spoil anything. I found this to be more grotesque than the earlier ones, and that might be one of the reasons why I loved it. Not that I'm that into grotesque books, but it's just something fascinating about things being really, really dark. Also with this one, it's really apparent that it helps reading book after book with the same people involved, for the simple reason that over time you start bonding with the people and it gets more intense. So I guess when I'm finished reading book number 9, probably going to happen this year, I'll be more attached to all the people more than ever. I gave this 5 out of 5, very, very entertaining. And it's not a dull moment, it's a real page turner. It happens in cold Sweden in winter, it's dark, people are mean to each other, people are in love, people are hurting, people are missing their kids. I'll leave it at that. I can also mention that I listened to Lars Kepler on audiobook, and it's the perfect kind of audiobook, because it's so page-turny that my ears just won't let go. So are there any of these books that you have read yourself and enjoyed? Please comment below. If you want to read any of these, also comment below. Comment below if you want to comment below. So with all this nonsense being said, I hope you have a wonderful start to your 2023 journey, and I hope to be seeing you every single week in the year to come. And thank you for watching this video.